I am ironically wearing one of their products, uh, my hat here. Um, when you talk about branding and issues with branding, and that's kind of been my theme today, I'm talking about a company like Under Armour. Under Armour was one of those companies that was like, oh my God, an American apparel company that could be a serious competitor to Nike. And I really wanted to have that idea of like, and then it was playing too because it was like East Coast versus West Coast, right? Nike being really a West Coast company, you get this company out on the East Coast, and for people that like kind of like that feel, like it was one of those companies that was supposed to be just like, yeah, in its initial branding strategy and everything else. At the time, really, people started hearing about it. It really resonated with people. And I'm talking like probably somewhere around between close to about 2018 time frame. It was just kind of like, yeah, this feels pretty good. But you look at the chart. Let's talk through the chart first. While McDonald's had a very healthy monthly chart, and there's no doubt about it, even though I'm not buying it, Under Armour, you can't say the same for it. On the monthly, it's just always been IPO down, down here to about $10.50. Then we talk about it catching on a little bit. People were like, oh, hey, Under Armour, hey, that's pretty cool, right? And we were able to ride that. This pandemic, get it, right? I'm not, when I look at this, just about every chart is going to have this like weird 2020 thing. But it recovered pre-pandemic levels. So then you say, okay, we've recovered or we're back to pre-pandemic levels, feeling pretty good. What did we do after that? 2021 sold off aggressively, made a new low. The bounce in 22 kind of, incremental gains in the share price again, but the bounce, right? This looks like a basketball that got thrown off a building and it just goes bounce, 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 bounce. And when you see a stock that looks like that on a chart, that sucks. No way, right? This is not good for the company. Even if you look at the daily chart, we'll break it down. I mean, this looks like a freaking one of these like meme stocks or something that's just like waiting for like, and maybe right. Maybe this might be a candidate for a short squeeze stock at one point, but not now. When you look at the daily chart again, this gap down here in March loses the 200 period. This was the 200. This was the 50. Lost that, attempting to reclaim the 50, but you got the 200 overhead. So now you're saying, okay, if we continue to stay above the 50, you still have this seven. This is sitting at around, this says $7.13. It'll fluctuate on a daily basis, but realistically, you're going to look at this 200. That's overhead resistance at this point. And so when you look at the technicals on this, I don't necessarily like the idea of that. At some point or another, if you're a technical trader and you're a purely technical trader, you get a close above here. Now you could look for a gap fill play. That's a trade that people look, and you could possibly ride this up to 764 if in fact it does that on a technical basis. I just don't like it, and here's why. When we talk about in today's market, how people feel about companies, what companies are doing out there. We just talked about a company like Nvidia that's just like smashing out of the water in a space that people want to be in. Amazon is not in, or Under Armour is not in that space. As I had Amazon on the mind, Under Armour is not in that space, and so therefore, it's not necessarily the darling of the retail of the apparel space. We talk about Control L. There we go. We talk about uh, the forward guidance a lot of times when we talk about earnings. They have beat on earnings. If you just look at it purely on earnings, they have beat. The expectations, in my opinion, were so low on this thing that it was just hard not to. And so company forward guidance was weak following earnings. I'm going to read this to you. Aaron talked about, you go to the company, pull up their earnings report. You can read it for yourself. I'm literally reading verbatim. Fiscal 2025 outlook. Due to a confluence of factors, including lower wholesale channel demand and inconsistent execution across our business, we are seizing this critical moment to make proactive decisions to build a premium positioning for our brand, which will pressure our top and bottom line in the near term. Over the next 18 months, there is a significant opportunity to reconstitute Under Armour's brand strength through achieving more by doing less and focusing on our core fundamentals, driving demand through better products, storytelling, running smarter plays like simplifying our operating model and elevating our consumer experience. In parallel, we are focused on cost management and implementing the strategies necessary to grow our brand and improve shareholder value as we move forward. That is language that means we're in a bad place. We don't like what we're doing right now. That is not a good thing you want to say at your earnings call. It sounds great, but every earnings call, right? Even the negatives, they try to put a positive spin. We're pivoting. If you got to reorganize, there's a problem. If you're saying, hey, well, here in a couple of years, we're going to look good, that's a problem. And so that is first and foremost, when you look at like the story, if you're getting it from the company, and I agree with this guy, but it's this guy's fault. I agree. Yes, the user experience is not that great. Again, have I purchased Under Armour clothing? Yeah, I'm wearing the doggone hat right now. I absolutely do think that their clothes are comfortable. Do they look the greatest? No. That herein lies the problem. Uninspired designs with so much competition. Now, that is my bias, right? If you want a plain colored shirt, you want to go to you go to the Under Armour website, you go to the Nike website, you look at the designs, and you're like, I mean, Nike designs just look better. Again, using my patented, and I say that in jest, teenage daughter indicator, my daughter's never asked me from Under Armour. She's asked me for Lululemon. She's asked me for Nike. She wants she wants she wants those J's. She wants those Panda Dunks. She's never once asked me to go to the Under Armour store. She's never asked to go to, let's shop the Under Armour website, and in my opinion, they're doing Steph Curry a great disservice because he's their feature athlete, and the shoes that they designed for him are crap. And so when you have competition out there, right? No Bull's coming for their lunch. A company like No Bull out there is basically an Under Armour type brand, and it looks like it's doing basically the same thing. But what I'm saying is that there's companies that are starting to crop up out there in this apparel space, right? That are doing the same thing, can offer the same kind of product. And so these independent brands that are cropping up all over the place that people are appealing to, that appeal to people, that is a problem. So when you have a branding problem, right, that becomes an issue, and you're paying out all this money for all these apparel deals with colleges and university. I know you went to Notre Dame; they're an Under Armour school, right? University of Wisconsin, a big fan, right? Growing up in Wisconsin, they're an Under Armour school. University of Maryland, if they're not an Under Armour school, that's a problem because they're based in Maryland. So you have these branding deals with these universities, right? But the visibility isn't there. And when you pull up the roster of athletes that they have signed to, like, Joel Embiid, Steph Curry, and that's like they've got other people, right? But like they're retired. Tom Brady is showing up on a search. I don't even know that he really like associates with them anymore or whatever. Like the roster just looks. It showed it on the web. I don't necessarily believe it. Most of their athletes are retired. That's what I'm saying. Like it just looked really, it just didn't feel good in terms of like where they were at. And so when you talk about the brand presence in today's market, what are people wearing? Where the like the Nike, specifically the Jordan brand, has experienced a resurgence, and they want the vintage designs, right? So like Jordan 1s are selling. I went and bought a pair in a different colorway because I'm like, oh wow, yeah, these look really cool, right? It just they've rebranded from like a strictly athletic shoe to a designer shoe of sorts, right? You want to collecting them like freaking Pokemon, right? Like, and so all of a sudden the desire to obtain and to have and to value and treasure and share, like that's important for a brand. Under Armour shoes aren't that at all. No. And so you look at the shoes and you're like, okay, these shoes compared to other shoes, they have a branding problem. When you talk about the apparel, like the shirts and the pants and all those things, again, I like the material. Some designs, okay, like but generally, if you look at what I have from Under Armour, it's either A, something they collabed with somebody, or B, I've got a plain colored shirt that just happens to be that, or C, it's Wisconsin gear because Wisconsin is an Under Armour school. I'm a Wisconsin Badgers fan. Therefore, some of my stuff is incidentally Under Armour. But I'm just going to follow the school, whatever branding apparel deal it happens to have. If it's Reeboks, heck, even if it goes back to starter, I don't care. I'm just going to buy whatever the school is kind of branded with, associated with, and I will buy that branding. So that is a huge issue, and they're not visible as in the same way that they used to be. You talk about Nike, and Nike is super visible, right? And they've been able to design a branding strategy, right? How many jerseys and uniforms do sports leagues and sports teams in the U.S. have now? Most baseball teams, say for the Yankees, right, they are very, very traditional, but most teams have 4 or even 5 baseball jerseys, and they're always coming out with like a city jersey or some sort of like tweak to another jersey. And so you see those on a recurring basis. In the NBA, there's almost uniform switches every year, it seems like, for NBA teams, like, and they've redesigned them where they used to be like home and away, now they've got different names for them. But at the same time, like, you look for that release, that uniform release, and Nike is a big part of that in terms of their design. Now, is Nike without controversy? No. Major League Baseball had that those uniform issues because Nike designed the specs, but Fanatics was the one that actually manufactured it, and the players were really mad about it. And then there was a shortage of the uniforms. And so they've kind of said, okay, there's going to be a pivot and probably look more like the previous uniform. So it's not like everybody else has not had problems, but Under Armour has a visibility problem, and it's starting to look like a lot of these smaller brands that you and I can collab together and design stuff and put it on the internet. We talk about the drop shipping, right? And throw some stuff out there, throw the A&D logo on there, and then all of a sudden we got the Air Aarons or the David Dunks. Like, so for that reason, between the technicals and the fundamentals that I'm seeing in the company and the statement from the company's earnings, their own earnings on their fiscal 2025 outlook, I'm not buying it.